Hello everyone, this is Mr. Shamshi and this module is called Sample Handling and Processing. So this module is all about how you collect your various kinds of samples properly. Okay, and the lecture number one will be all about just introduction to sampling. What is sampling? Okay, how important it is to sample properly, and then we'll take a look at some international standards, for example, like ISO, because these international standards they contain guidelines for you to follow in order to collect your samples properly. Okay, so let's just jump straight to today's lecture. Okay, so hopefully at the end of this lesson, you are able to understand why is it important for you to collect your samples properly. We'll take a look at this definition here. What are representative samples? And then, as I said just now, some organizations like ISO and how important are they in order to guide you to collect your samples properly. Okay, so this is the contents we're covering. What is sampling? Why do you need to collect sample? Sampling as evidence. That means when you collect your sample, that sample can become an evidence. Okay, that's why you need to collect them properly. Types of evidences. COC, chain of custody. This is a form showing you at which point of time the who is handling your evidence, because you need to have restricted access to people to people that is handling your evidences. Okay, so you will tell you who is handling your evidence. And then we take a look at what's representative sampling, some sampling standards. So, what is the definition of sampling? It is a procedure, okay, it's steps for you to follow. Define, that means it's already set for you already. So you must follow this procedure. And what does the procedure tell you to do? Is to take a part of a substance, material, or product. That means you don't take everything, you just take a portion of it. For example, if I want to test the water quality of maybe Bedok Reservoir, okay, so I ask you to go there to collect a sample for you to come back to the lab to test. You don't collect all the water in the reservoir, right? You just take a small portion of it to bring back to the lab to test. So this is the meaning of this. You just take a small part and then you go and do your testing and you get your results, and your sample must be representative. Later we'll take a look at this, but representative briefly is just that this sample that you collect, right, the properties of this sample that you collect, that small sample, must be having the same properties as where you take it from. For example, if this is your Bedok Reservoir water that you collect, right, so the results there that you collect must be similar to the water in the Bedok Reservoir that you take it from. So this is the reason why you need to collect your samples properly. So why do you need to sample? Okay, these are some of the reasons why people collect a sample. So to check whether there's any special treatment that you need. For example, if I have a waste here, right, waste product, and some contaminant is very dangerous if it's in high levels. So I need to collect a sample to check whether this contaminant is at that level or not. If it's at that level, I need to perform some special treatment as well. Okay, so I need to check whether this is high or not. So therefore, I need to go there to collect my waste sample to test. Extent of contamination. So already something happened and there's a spill, okay, there's a release to the environment. So I need to check, okay, is it bad or not, this contamination? So how do I know whether bad or not? I have to collect a sample from that contaminated area and go and test it. Okay, or you just have background information. That means before something happened, you just regularly take a sample to test and collect the data, so that if something happened, right, you can compare. Okay, is it serious compared to before anything happened? Okay, so it's just for background information. That means before anything happened, you keep testing it, collecting the sample to test it. Okay, next we have self-monitoring program. This one is the most common one. That means each company, right, when they make a product, how do they know that the product is good quality or not? So what they do, if they have their own self-monitoring program, that means they collect their own samples and they test their product to see whether it meets their requirements or not. Okay, so that it shows that the product meet any compliance to certain uh, standards that they need to meet. And the last one is to prove a violation. That means maybe some company they anyhow throw your discharge into the environment, right? So to prove that these substances are hazardous, they go and collect a sample where the sample is being discharged, and they go and test the sample. Okay. So sometimes when you do this, right, for example, just now, right, when you collect the samples to prove that certain company anyhow throw their waste and so on, right? So that sample that you collect, right, will become an evidence really, because this is to show that this company is not doing something right. Okay, they anyhow discharge their waste and so on. So your samples become a form of evidence. So therefore, make sure when you collect your sample, you collect your samples properly. All right. Because if you anyhow collect your samples, right, and then when the court comes back, can you tell us how you collect your samples? You anyhow collect, then these samples as evidence will not be valid anymore. So you have to make sure that you collect it properly, because it needs to be credible in all these places, okay? Court, public, and so on. So just be careful. That's why sampling is very important actually. So if your samples are to be used in court, they of course must know the quality first. So that means you have to test your sample first, okay, get the results and so on. And of course, this one, as I said many times already just now, must be collected according to sound technical procedure. That means this procedure must be uh, approved or legislated by certain organization. Okay, you cannot anyhow create your own procedure. Okay, you must collect correctly according to, for example, ISO procedures. For example, you must collect according to that. And just now I mentioned also representative. So make sure that sample that you collect is similar in properties to where you collect it from. Okay. And then you also have to show that this sample, right, only certain people can access to the sample, because if too many people, right, then it might get contaminated and so on. So you don't want too many people to have access to this sample, and also you need to record down at which place and time this person has access to the sample. So everything must be there. So we will know who is handling the sample at which particular place and time. Okay, types of evidence. There are three types: demonstrative, testimonial, and physical. So demonstrative are all your documents, photograph, videos, maps, diagram, everything. That includes also your sample test reports. That means telling you, okay, this product got this pH, got this amount of heavy metals, and so on, so on. All the test results are also considered demonstrative. Testimonial is some statement made by someone, okay, saying that, okay, oh, I saw this guy discharge his waste into the drain, for example. So that's a testimonial. And physical are the actual samples, for example, the product itself. Okay, so samples, not the test result, is the sample itself that you collect. So this is a physical evidence. It can also be containers, it can be vehicles, and so on. Chain of custody. So as I said just now, chain of custody is who has access to that sample at a particular location and time. Okay, so this chain custody form will show you who has access to the samples and so on. Okay, so this ensures that there's and don't have any tampering to your samples and so on. Okay, if anything, you can just quickly find the person who has access to these samples. Okay, so this chain of custody form will show ask who has access to the sample. Okay, and of course, they also have information like who collect the sample, what is the sample, when is the sample collected, okay, where, and then of course who has access to the sample, any custodians. This is an example of a chain of custody form. So the top part here is all about the samples, okay, then test for what, when is sample, okay, test for pH, lead, copper, blah blah, all this. And down here at the bottom here, right, you can see here relinquish. By relinquish means is given out to someone. That means if now I have the sample, right, I give it to you, so relinquish by me, okay, because I give it to you. Relinquish by who? So you write down the name of the person that give it out, and receive by who? The person who receive it. So if I give it to you, you are the one that sign and put your name here. Receive by who? So if you give it to someone else, then you will sign here, relinquish by. So you give it away to somebody else who receive it. So in this case, we can track who has access to the sample. Okay, so back to this definition, representative sample. Okay, so make sure you collect the representative sample and make sure they are representative. What is representative? They must be similar properties to where you collect the sample from. Okay, so in this case, equivalent to in terms of composition and physical and chemical properties. Everything must be the same. If it's different, then no point for you to test the sample already. Okay, because it's not accurate. Okay, so it must be accurate, it must be reproducible. So every time you test, you get the same result. So that small sample, right, will truly affect the results from where you collect it from. Okay, so that is hopefully you understand a bit about what is sampling and why you need to collect your samples properly because it can be used as evidence. Okay, and then make sure when you collect your sample as evidence, it must have limited access to certain people only. Okay, let's take a look at some international standards. So these are some we will cover very briefly only. We have ISO, ANSI, military standard, HACCP, USP, pharmacopoeia, FDA. So why do we need to have standards? So all these lah. So make sure all your products, quality, environment, safety, okay, are there. Okay. Okay. So obviously, when let's say you buy a handphone, if everything works well, so no complaints lah. But actually, this handphone they are manufactured according to certain standards. Okay, if not, it will be spoiled easily. So more reasons why we need to have standard. Okay, make it more efficient, make your product safer. Okay, so it's fair trade between countries who follow these standards. Okay, you can share any technology that you have. Okay, some governments also follow these standards and then they amend it accordingly, according to the country. Okay, for example, in terms of health, safety, and environment. Innovation, okay, you innovate something, then you share with other people, safeguard you lah, consumers. Okay, that means you make sure that you get a good quality products. All right. Okay, these are some of the standards that we'll be covering briefly. So the first part here, the first three, standard that has protocols for sampling plan, test, and quality. That means these standards, right, they will tell you how to collect the sampling plan. They will tell you how to test the sample also. Okay, that means I don't know how to test pH. How? Then they will have a procedure telling you how to test also. Follow the steps. Okay, so that this type of standards, they will have all this. So it's very comprehensive. Okay, and these are examples. ISO, obviously, ANSI, military standard. Some international standard will only tell you, okay, you need to meet this requirement, so and so. Finish. They don't tell you how to test. They don't tell you how to collect the sample and so on. Okay, they just tell you in order to meet this USP standard, this is the result you should have. Finish. Okay, so different. Okay, they don't tell you how to collect samples and so on. So these are some example. USP, FDA. Oops, and this one below here is actually HACCP. Okay. Okay, let's quickly take a look at the first one. This is ISO. I think all of you should have heard of this. But finally, the ISO, right, is actually International Organization for Standardization. So it's actually IOS, but the abbreviation is ISO. Okay, so just take note of this. Huh? So it has develop standard and maintain it, of course. Okay, develop mutual cooperation in all these areas. Okay, many lah. ISO. In ITE itself, we have 9,000 and 14,000. Okay, this should be 14,000, not 1,400. Okay, 9,000 series of quality management. Briefly lah, we cover this. Okay, no need to go in detail. So it tells the company what to do in order to ensure they have good quality products. 14,000 is more for environment. Okay, but it's similar to 9,000. It's just focus on environment. Okay, in terms of our module, okay, sample handling, this one is more focused on this. So for water quality and sampling, you look for ISO 5667. So 5667 will tell you everything. How to collect the water lah, how to preserve the water after you collect, how to handle the water samples after you collect. Okay, so that by the time you reach to the lab, your water sample is still of good quality to be tested. Okay, so this includes many types of water. Can be lakes, river, blah blah, all this wastewater also. Okay, they also tell you how to do the testing. Or if you want to do microbiological testing, they also have procedures to tell you. Okay, very comprehensive. 5667. For petroleum sampling, is ISO 3170. Okay, so that's for petroleum. So they tell you how to collect petroleum samples, various type of petroleum products. For soil, how to dig the soil and all this, right? Look for ISO 18400. Okay, they will tell you how to dig with shovel, how to dig with other equipment and so on. Okay, we will get to all this in later lectures. Okay, ANSI is mainly for the Americans, American National Standard Institute, or ANSI. Okay, so this is mainly set up to ensure that their products can be used overseas. Okay, we coordinate with the US standard to make sure their product can be used around the world. Okay, they can also accredit the company. That means they give you the certification similar to ISO. Next one is military standard. Okay, this one is we will take a look at this in later lectures also. Okay, so this one actually you see from the name here, right? Military standard. It actually comes originally from the Americans' defense, like the U.S. Army. So the U.S. Army, right, because they want to use certain type of, for example, bullets for their weapons. So they have to make sure that this bullet caliber is similar and can be used in their weapons. So basically, it's to standardize their product. It can be used anywhere. But because other countries start to realize that this military standard is very good, okay, so they also start to adopt this standard also. So that's why military standard is one of the international standard. So some countries they also follow the military standards. Okay. HACCP is more for food and pharmaceutical. Take note, it's not for petroleum and all this. Okay, and it ensures that all these hazards, physical, chemical, or biological, are controlled. Okay, prevent them from going into your food product. So the HACCP actually there's three components inside there. First one is H, which is called hazard. Okay, hazard means you study what kind of hazard that can affect your food product, for example. Okay, so you identify, okay, maybe E. coli, this bacteria can cause somebody who eat my food to be sick. So you identify what kind of hazards can affect your customers. Okay, it can be not only biological, it can be chemical, it can be physical, maybe inside got hair and dirt inside all this. So you have to study your hazard first. Okay, after you identify your hazard, you analyze them. Okay, what kind of analysis do you perform on the hazard once you identify, right? So you identify whether it is serious or not. So let's say, for example, if I accidentally hit somebody's hair inside the food, maybe the most is I vomit a bit. Okay, that's all. Okay, I won't fall sick seriously. But if it's bacteria, for example, I might be it's more serious. Somebody can get sick, and people can die also. Okay, so you need to study how serious your hazard is after you identify your hazard, and you also identify how often do you think it can occur. Is it very rare or always will happen, and so on. Okay, so you identify the hazard, and then you identify how serious and how often do you think this hazard can go inside your food product. And then lastly, you apply CCP, critical control point. That means once I know the hazard, I know how serious it is. I now take steps to prevent it from going into my food product, or at least reduce it to such a low level that it won't affect my customers. Okay, that's critical control point. So there's three components: hazard, find out what's your hazard, find out how serious it is, analyze it, and then control it, prevent it from happening. So why do we need HACCP? Yes. Okay, these are some of the reasons why we need to have HACCP certification. Nowadays, right, you can tell there's more and more new uh, pathogens that can affect you. Chemical contamination also. Okay, now as you see, right, now there's so many type of product brands, so many type of products. Okay, so people need to ensure that they are safe to be consumed. Okay, that's why if you see some food product with this HACCP logo, you can at least feel safe that the company is following these guidelines. Okay, so growing trend in international trade for food products. Okay, so that's why when you buy from other country, you may want to take a look whether they are HACCP certified or not, and so on. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. Of course, it gives you confidence. This is an example of a HACCP logo by PSB. Okay, so if you go to supermarket, right, I don't know whether you notice, like for example, your bread and all, they should have HACCP logo. Okay, and of course, with this logo, right, your company has access to other markets lah, because people trust your product. Okay, other advantages of HACCP, it gives you stability in your process, more consistency, save money. This one favorite answer. Everything also save money. Because why? You have less rejects, right? Because you follow the HACCP guidelines. So your product of a good quality. So if you have less rejects, so therefore you save money lah. Okay, if because you have more rejects, you throw it away, right? So it's waste your money. And HACCP also requires the company to continuously improve their processes so that all points are monitored and controlled. USP is more for the US, okay, US pharmacopoeia. So theirs is more for medicines and healthcare products. Okay, so they help to control the quality of medicines and healthcare products. Okay, they also set the standards for food ingredients and dietary supplement. That means if I produce, for example, fish oil, right, I need to meet the requirements set by USP. That means I must meet certain purity and so on in my health supplements. And this one is FDA. So FDA is a bigger agency here in the US again. So this one will control all the health related products. Okay, for example, drugs, vaccines, biological products, and so on. All right, so that's that for lecture number 1. Hopefully, you have not fallen asleep by now. Thank you.